Evening and welcome to the October 10th, 2023 Special Board of Education meeting for Arlington Heights School District 25. The focus of this meeting is the Superintendent Search. Dr. Tim Shipp from school and Dr. Bhavna Sharma Lewis are joining us from School Exec Connect, as well as Dr. Anisha Jogi, and they're joining us remotely. With that, I call the meeting to order. It is now 6:03 p.m. Lana, could you please call the roll?
Jogi?
Yes.
Michael?
Here.
Faso?
Here.
Neerman?
Here.
Scapalato?
Here. If you please stand, if you are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we begin, we need to assign a Secretary Pro Tem this evening. Can I have a motion?
I nominate Kevin Michael for Secretary Pro Tem.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, thank you. And Kevin, you'll serve as our Secretary Pro Tem this evening. All right, so good evening to Dr. Shimp and Dr. Sharma Lewis. We're excited to learn about the results from the community survey and the numerous focus groups that you facilitated for us. So I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us this evening. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it'll go without fail. It says the host has disabled my screen sharing, so I'm not sure who the host is. But maybe they can give me it back. There it is. Let's see. Bhavna, you might have to do that. Let's see if I don't. There it is. I'm going to assume you can see that. We are good? All right. Thank you for your patience. And thank you again for allowing us to come present the engagement and profile report this evening. Dr. Sharma Lewis and myself were very honored and had a great time interacting with your community. To remind the public and the board, you asked us to conduct focus groups with a wide variety of stakeholders. I would say in all my searches, 7, 8 of them that I've done, this is the most focus groups that we have participated in. So credit to the board for your desire for transparency and stakeholder voice, and we certainly acknowledge that and appreciated the chance to do that. It gave us a good lens to understand your community and the needs of your district. We also, as you know, put out an online survey to gather input from the various stakeholders. We did it both in English and in Spanish. And then the goal was to come back tonight, which we have, with a new superintendent profile that will really be used to move forward in the process with candidates, interviews, and ultimately the selection of a new superintendent going forward. Just as a reminder of how the profile will be used, we're going to begin our screening of candidates very shortly. We've already done some of that online, but certainly and through those who have applied. But as we get face-to-face interviews set up and looking at best fit, we're going to be using this profile. Our hope is that the board will use that as you begin to narrow down your focus and interview candidates in the future, in using the profile to craft questions, but inquire more on the candidates. Certainly knowledge of the district. They're all going to want us, the candidates are going to want to understand what's the district looking for, what's the board looking for, is this a good fit for me or not? So the profile is going to help that process, and then the stakeholder perspective of just giving the board a different lens on what your community is asking for in their next leader. All in all, we had, I think, 200 right around there attendees of, I think it was probably 22 or 21 focus groups plus 7 individual board meetings. We also had an online questionnaire that was open for, you see the 3 or 4 weeks of time frame. We had a tremendous response from your community. I would say in all the searches that I've done and the size of your district, this was a fantastic response. And I think the kudos goes to your district office, Stacy and Adam and Lena, and all those who were involved in getting the word out in communication. And kudos to your community for saying and to be invested in getting their feedback heard. And we want to remind everybody, you know, this isn't a scientific study. It's perceptions of those who responded, participated. And when you see anything related to percentages, we did round up. So it was a 0.5 or higher, we went up to the next number. When we did our focus groups and what you saw in this survey, our goal was to find out, you know, how do we sell this to the candidates out there? We want to know everything that's wonderful about your district and why a superintendent would want to come here. We also wanted to hear about why, what are some of the challenges that they might face? What might be a barrier to their success as they take on this opportunity? The priorities over the first year, that's important for someone to know, you know, where should they focus their efforts? And then lastly is kind of the things from soft skills to background experiences. You know, what are you really looking for in this person to be serving as your next superintendent? So those were the things that we asked in the focus groups as well as in the survey. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the focus groups. I don't know, Bobna, if you want to lead this.
Sure. We, as Tim said, and thank you, Tim, for taking the lead on this and starting our discussion. As we said, I have not either, in the 4 searches that I've done, have not participated in as many focus groups with face-to-face interaction with stakeholders. So it was a dynamic experience. People were highly engaged and highly involved and really wanted to share a voice of how amazing things are going right now under the current leadership and the direction of the district. But they're also very optimistic and looking forward to continuing on your path and journey to excellence. So we met with parents and students, certified and support staff personnel. Obviously, we each also had individual meetings with all of you as board members. Then we held a group with community leaders and non-for-profit organization leaders, as well as the administration, and that meaning the building leadership teams, as well as the central office cabinet team. So we had 20, sorry, go ahead. The district strengths, and we would say probably about 95% of everybody agreed to all the things that are going really well. And based on the different groups that we met with, they might have said, here's, you know, one additional thing that might have been unique only to their needs. Like I know the PTO members and leaders basically said that they loved the visibility that Dr. Bine has and how she is at all the events. Obviously, the teachers didn't say that because they may not, you know, see her at the same event, but definitely those are the kind of things in the examples I'm talking about. So the district strengths are its student achievement and the reputation of the overall student achievement and growth, and the high sense of pride and value that's placed on meeting the kids' needs wherever they're at on the spectrum, whether it's students that have learning needs or students that need advanced or enrichment opportunities. This is a destination district. I think we've told you that before, but all the stakeholder groups have definitely validated that this is someplace that somebody wants to come to and stay for a long time and possibly retire from. They're very prideful and celebrate the level of diversity that you have. everybody definitely said that they love the opportunities for diversity, equity, inclusion. They love the direction of the strategic plan and where it's going, and that the superintendent will definitely need to have a diversified approach to equity and education for all. The amount of resources, how well resourced you are, not only in a human standpoint, but also financially, with curriculum resources, professional development, supports through the community, and also just the innovations that you're able to participate in with technology and instruction.
And I'll tell you, we both Bob and I had the opportunity to meet with your middle school students, and the things that they talked about related to resources, that are accessible to them, the activities, the opportunities. I never talk to kids and they brag about your food, but this group, they could not say enough good things about the lunches and the food that you serve. So whatever you're doing with food service, you're rocking it. So keep it up. But the kids were very complimentary and thankful for the resources that you provide. And that's a compliment to the district as well, and Dr. Bine and the board for the financial condition that you're in, and your stewardship of the dollars and resources, and the staff too, of the professional development opportunities that they are getting. I'll speak a little bit further, just about more in depth about the focus group strengths. We heard a lot over and over about the tight-knit family feel of your community. Even though you're a bigger district and bigger community, there is a sense of you take care of each other. And that, the education is looked upon very proudly, with the resources, with the programs that you offer. You have a very collaborative spirit. There's a value system in your school community that is respected and desirable. I think Bobna talked about the diversity, equity, inclusion. That was a theme that came out over and over again. That it's a strength, it's a celebration. The multilingual programs that you have, the diversity of student population that you have across the district, and that's something that you're very, very proud of as a whole. The other strength they talked about is the funding and the parent involvement. That because of the partnership and because your parents are so vested, it does raise the expectations of the board, of the staff of the school district, to make sure that you're meeting those expectations and you're partnering together to make sure good things happen for our kids. And I think a tribute to Dr. Bine and all the staff. Your district's well organized. You operate well. It's a well-oiled machine. It's there's not a lot of operations that are in need of great things to be addressed or fixed. Obviously someone can come in and help look from a new lens, but by and large, it's a student-focused environment that is running really well, from the board to the administration to the teaching staff. From a challenges standpoint, I think it's where do we continue to go financially? When you look at the teacher shortage, when you look at, are we staying competitive in hiring personnel? That's something that most districts are facing, but it's a challenge that's going to continue to be at the forefront of everything that we do. From a program standpoint, although there's nothing right now that says we need to be worried about full day kindergarten, it's on people's minds. So it's just a general concern. The building's going to be done. Are we going to hire the staff? Are they going to train the staff? Is everything going to be in place? So I think just making sure the implementation of that goes well is something that is on people's minds as a challenge. And then from a special ed growing population, making sure the allocation and equitable distribution of resources and support are being addressed across the district as you move forward. One of the things that came up, I would say pretty consistently, is that, and probably since COVID, there's been more voices out in the community. And I would say that's true for all school districts. But as a board, as an administrative team, as a superintendent, how do you make sure that you're balancing or making sure you're hearing all those voices? And then, whatever decisions are being made or whatever direction is being made or response is being given, are they consistent with the mission, values, and vision of your district? So given those voices a platform to be heard, but also making sure that whatever direction you go is the direction that you want to go as a district, and that you decided this is our approach through your strategic plan and through the work that you've been doing. We've talked about the DEI work, making sure that continues to be a part of the core identity of Arlington 25. Continue to address the behavioral and social emotional needs of kids. I think never before have we seen more need for that. I think, we've seen more mental health issues in students. We've seen more social and emotional behavioral issues in students. So a challenge is, how do you do that while still meeting the academic needs of all students? So that's an area that needs to be continued at the forefront of your work. And then just looking, any superintendent coming in, there's a complexity with transition. One, because you're following a superintendent that's been in place for a while. And that has its own set of dynamics as you transition a new person in. But then, how do you continue to, address morale with DEI, with allocation of resources and equitable distribution of the resources? So, just the complexity of being a superintendent, working with a board and a community in a time where, things are different than they were years ago, and you're following a superintendent who's been here for a while. From a priority standpoint, first and foremost, I think they're looking for someone to come in and get to know the stakeholders. Listen, learn, understand what's the hopes and dreams of the individuals, making sure that this individual is visible in the community and in the schools, to get to know people both on a personal and a professional level. Don't just come in and change things for the sake of changing, but really understand where the priorities need to be had, what's the board's desires, what's in the strategic plan as far as goals and action plans. And really that goes to the respecting all the things that have come before. This individual takes the seat in July, and looking at, okay, let's make a plan. If there changes need to be made, let's look at, slow and steady wins the race. Let's make sure that we're doing things well and doing things right, and not just do things to do things. Safety and security is on everybody's mind, both from a physical facility safety and security standpoint, to training and making sure that in the event of something bad happens, we have an understanding of how to respond, but also from a emotional, socially emotional, and mental health safety and security standpoint. The academics is always going to be a priority. It needs to be a priority. That's why we exist. We exist to make sure that kids are prepared for whatever decision they want to make once they leave Arlington 25, that they're prepared to do that from an academic standpoint. So that has to be a priority. The DEI came out over and over with every group as a priority, making sure that what you have started in your district continues, and there's follow through and forward progress and thinking as you've started to in your district. People want that. They see it as we talked about, as a strength and a celebration. So let's make sure that continues as a priority. And then we talked about full day kindergarten, but also then how do we evaluate the REI on investments, or the return? What's being looked at from a data standpoint? How do we know that those goals, action plans, and initiatives on the strategic plan are making a difference? And have we done enough to evaluate that? So people are seeing that as a priority. We can't do everything in 1 year. We can't evaluate all programs in 1 year. But do you have a plan? Do you have a plan to say that the goals and action plans of our strategic plan are being actualized? Or do we need to go a different direction, or do we need to abandon ship and do something different? So those are things that, again, I think it's a lot to ask for in the first year, but I think someone come in with a transition plan to see how these are going to unfold. There was a lot of discussion about the teams. Dr. Bine has done a really nice job in building working relationships with the administrators and the staff. So someone that can come in and continue that work and build upon it. making sure that the voices that Dr. Bine has used for feedback at the building level continue to be done. That's important in your district, that, you know, people's professional expertise, their perspective, their dreams and concerns are being considered. So making sure that's in place. And then making sure that all the parents are feeling welcome in the schools, and that is a priority of coming across as an approachable leader, as someone that wants to get to know kids, and making sure that kids feel important and welcome. You know, it's funny when I talk to the middle school students, what they want out of a superintendent, they want someone that, one of the young students said to me, she said, you know, Dr. Ship, I'd like to see, if I'm having a bad day and I'm walking down the hallway, that the superintendent can make me smile and make me have a better day. It isn't that, I mean, that's it. If you can do that as a superintendent, you're going to have no problems anywhere else. So that's what they're looking for, making sure kids feel welcome to talk to this person. So that has to be a priority for the superintendent. And then looking at, you know, making sure they're working with the district office and the buildings for clear and deliberate communication about the future of Arlington 25. And then the last piece with the skills, the characteristics. You know, how do they manage the political aspects of it, of all the different constituents, of the economic piece of it, the citizen and the city planning that's going on. You know, how do we bring all those people together to make sure that we're building relationships with both in the school district personnel, but also across the community, and making sure that they're collaborative and those are working relationships. Someone that can be the face of the district, not only giving direction to that and branding the district, but making sure that they're recognizing and valuing the contributions of others. As a superintendent, your goal is also to make sure other people feel valued and being you know, appreciated for the work that they're doing. So someone that can come in and do that. I think from a diversity standpoint, your district's looking for someone that has some experience in looking at diversity from multiple lenses, and coming in and supporting and putting in place programs that promote equity and inclusion, and understand that if these are our values as a community, that we're going to have some disagreements, we're going to have some discussions, and we need a superintendent that can have those and do it in a way that's meaningful and purposeful, and that we come out of there with a plan, and we come out of there with relationships that are intact, and that we can say that we may disagree on things. We might have some differences of opinions or discussions about this, but in the end, we want the same things for kids. So let's work together and build a partnership to do that. People really want a superintendent that's deeply rooted in Arlington 25. They want this person visible at community events. They want them to be there for a while. They're not looking for a superintendent to come in for a short trip on a long career journey. We talked about that. We heard it, as Bhavna said, it's a destination district. We heard that over and over. You have staff that have stayed there for a while. You have staff that have gone to school there, that have come back to teach now. So they want the same thing from a superintendent. They don't necessarily believe the superintendent has to live there, but they do want them deeply rooted in your culture and your community. And then someone that just wants to get invested in your programming and understand, you know, this is what we stand for, this is who we are, this is where we're going, and then can articulate that vision and get people on board and can follow that superintendent and follow the board to take them to the next level. And then from a community survey standpoint, so there was a, 67% were parents, either of current or past students. The second largest group was your employee group, with teacher and certified personnel at 19. Your support staff were 7, and then your community business leaders were at 15%. So, you know, you see the 722 people who took the survey. We had one individual, a parent, who took the survey in Spanish, but the 721 of them were with the English. very much like the strengths, and we see this reflected in many districts. But I think, it was very evident that your community thinks very highly of your staff. They have a very good reputation. So 50% say it's a strength, the teacher quality at 31%. And then your parents, as I talked about earlier, that came out in the focus groups, you have involved parents, which makes your place very special. And then I added the bottom three just for, we asked for the top three, but so the community could see and the board could see. You have great pride. You believe your students are achieving very well, and that it's a very student-centered school district. So when you look at your strengths, if I'm a community member, if I'm a board, if I'm an employee, I'm pretty happy with what people see as the strengths. Where you spend your resources, when you think about it, it's on the kids, it's on the staff. And that's a strength of your community, your strength that your community perceives for Arlington 25. Some of the challenges, we know there's gaps, and, there's even, when you think about the diversity of your school district, which is a celebration, also with that comes challenges. And, how do we make sure that all kids are growing and progressing at the level which meets their individual needs? How do we continue to understand and support the diversity in the district is going to be a continued challenge. As much as it's a strength, we have to continue to make sure that that's realized. Effective board governance. I think this is very common as a perceived challenge when you think about a board turnover, or excuse me, of a superintendent turnover after a current superintendent has been in their seat for a very long time, as well as some new board members. So making sure that there is effective board governance that you've had in your district when a new superintendent comes in, and when you have some new board members in their roles. So going through that process and making sure that you're all working in unison to make sure that the relationships that you've established with your administrators, with your teachers union, remain intact. I mean, that's scary for people. It's, the fear of the unknown, because you've had it good for quite some time. Challenging and state-of-the-art curriculum was also a perceived challenge. I think what came out a few different of the focus groups was, are we supporting all learners? Are we, through our gifted programming, through our special ed programming, are we challenging regardless of where they are on their learning journey? Are we making sure the sports are in place to challenge them at their level and as individual learners? And then there was a number of others that specified that the board will see in their, just specific comments about things that they perceive as challenges across the different areas of a school district. And then strong administrators and principals. Again, you have a superintendent who's had a long tenure in here. So making sure that as a superintendent leaves and a new one comes in, do we continue to have people in those seats that make a difference? The research shows that second to a classroom teacher, your building principal has one of the greatest impacts on student outcomes and achievement. So, that's an important area to make sure that, we have good leaders in the buildings and at the district level as we make this transition. The survey also talked about the next 3 years, looking at from a lens of the programming for all kids, again, achievement levels, and it goes back to that, the achievement gaps and different programming for different student needs. How do you strengthen what's already in place moving forward? The 21st century curriculum, it's interesting. We're certainly in 23 years into the century, so but I don't think there's ever been a greater time where we need to be thinking about the future of education from the lens of creativity and problem solving and innovation, when the students that we have in our schools are moving into a world that really in many respects has yet to be defined. So it's a great responsibility for a school district to be progressive, to stay current, and to be planning for what our kids are going to need long after they leave the walls of Arlington 25. The sense of belonging piece, goes back to that mental health and goes to the social emotional aspect of our jobs as school districts, to making sure that, you know, we're giving kids an equitable experience, we're addressing diversity and inclusion, and that we're giving kids an opportunity to feel connected to something much greater than themselves, and to feel connected to something with peers and with programs and with their schools, because we know if they're connected, their success rates, their attendance rate, all those things dramatically go up. The student achievement came up again over the next 3 years. Social emotional well-being, staff morale, making sure that staff feel valued. We want happy people working in our schools, just like we want happy kids, we want happy adults. And then engaging kids, that goes back to our academic programming, that goes back to student achievement. If we want kids' scores to go up, if we want kids to increase in their growth from where they are, we need to make sure they're engaged. And then the last piece from the survey was the skills needed for a new superintendent, the attributes. What do we want from this person? You know, we want someone that's student-centered. We want someone that's understands teaching and learning, and how kids learn. That can be an asset and a support for your teachers across the district and your parents and students across the district. You're looking for someone that can build, you know, bring people together and problem solve and come to a decision and consensus, and that can build a team. The equity piece came out again. You know, how to create a sense of belonging. It's interesting, you know, they talk about as a priority, your community wants a sense of, you know, someone who prioritizes a sense of belonging, but they also want someone who can do that and can put a plan in place and create structures for that to happen. A superintendent has to be able to make decisions, you know, and sometimes they're not going to be the most popular, and sometimes they're not going to make everybody happy. But in the end, ultimately, a superintendent has to make decisions when they need to. So making sure you have someone that can do that, but also has the people skills to be able to maintain relationships once those decisions are made, and make people feel like that when they walk away, I was heard, I was respected, and that, you know, this person generally enjoys the community that they serve long after decisions are made. And then the last couple there, just making sure you continue to get good quality people in your district, open-minded, flexible, and can communicate both from a written standpoint, a speaking standpoint, and from just an overall collaboration standpoint. So with all of that, we went through the survey, we went through the focus groups, and we tried to put together some guiding statements of a new superintendent profile that we can share with candidates, that you can share with your community, that really embodies, encompasses everything that was shared. And this is what the profile really came out to be. So an authentic, warm, caring, approachable demeanor, a superintendent who excels at fostering trust and cultivating a positive and student-centered environment. You're looking for someone who wholeheartedly embraces the current customs and traditions of District 25, the community, who demonstrates a keen understanding and appreciation for the community's diverse residents and students. A superintendent who is immerses deeply in the life of District 25 schools. So this goes to that visibility piece. They have a substantial presence in the schools, the classrooms, district events, and community activities. Your staff, your kids love it that Dr. Bine is in the buildings. And she doesn't just come there, you know, to go to the main office, but she dresses up. She asks them how their families are. She generally knows your staff and your buildings. They want someone like that. Your community wants a superintendent who's going to do that. You know, a superintendent who leads with both intellect, so their head and their heart, you know, their head when they have to make decisions and process and do budgets, but also as a superintendent, you need to lead with your heart. You have to care about people, you have to care about kids, and you have to care about the adults in the community that you serve. And is there a track record of accomplishment of doing both of those things and influencing outcomes of student success and district achievements? Moving forward, they also want a superintendent who has expertise at this level. I'm not sure your community is really looking for a high school person completely to come in. Now, maybe someone has K-12 experience, but certainly they have to have that pre-K through EC through 8 experience, who understands innovation and how kids learn. Can serve a role model for listening. How they bring in the stakeholder groups, whether that's the city officials, whether that's staff, parents, the board, whatever stakeholders that are. How do we champion their involvement and making sure that we're working together through decisions and we're collaborative? You want someone who's very transparent and openly acknowledges contributions from others. That goes to that value piece, that it's not about the superintendent. It's about the work that we do as a collective district in giving praise and acknowledgement where it's due. Someone that can construct cohesive teams and bring out the best in others. Consensus building, they can mentor, whether that's teachers, whether that's administrators, and then articulate those are expectations of, if here's what we stand for and here's what we need to accomplish. So that empowerment piece. And then someone who demonstrates those communication skills, who's timely with communication, transparent interactions with internal and external stakeholders, and that through that work, your image is enhanced. Do you send stuff out, that's legible with their written message? Can you speak articulately and whether it's during a crisis time frame, whether that's at a celebration, or whether that's informally at a community event, being able to communicate on all different levels with all different ranges of peoples and sizes of the event. And then has a social multimedia proficiency. And then the last piece of it, the last four, they're going to have some hard decisions. And are they making those on behalf of kids? And can they convey the why behind decisions? Your staff talked a lot about, there's times where we understand Dr. Bine has to make a decision, but what she did for us is she told us the why. And here's the reasons behind my decisions. It was clear, it was logical, and it was empathetic. And that helps when a superintendent can do that, to get buy-in, at least to get acceptance for the direction that we're going. They're looking for a superintendent that can collaborate effectively with all the board members, and making sure that there's a clear alignment and transparency with, here's the vision of the district and here's where we're headed. And then can really articulate that from a short and long term of, this is the direction we're going and this is how we're going to get there. And then motivate and get people behind them to do it. Someone that can prioritize the people aspect of the employees in the district. We want to get the best people. We want to make sure that they're given the resources to develop and to make sure that we retain them. Those people that were working hard in your district, let's keep them, because we know it's not getting any easier to find wonderful employees. So once we have them, let's make sure they stay. And that comes from, much like Dr. Bine has done, getting to know people personally, but also what are their professional aspirations, and making sure that you're diverse, your workforce is diverse. Do you have a diverse staff, both from a support level, but from a certified level, administrative level? How do we go about making sure that's in place? And then just understanding the overall complexity of a school district. And then how do we use our resources at the local level, at the state level, and national level, to build collaborative partnerships to enhance our opportunities, whether that's fiscally, whether that's academically, from a community resource standpoint, whatever those things are. How do we make sure that we're tapping into all the resources across all the different regions? So next steps in finality, after tonight, assuming the board accepts the new superintendent profile, Bob and I are going to be heading out to begin the process of our face-to-face interactions with all the candidates who are applying. We're going to be coming back to the board on November 14th and presenting a slate of 5 to 7 recommended candidates to the board. Ultimately, then the board will decide which 5 to 7 of those to interview. We've tentatively slated November 27th through December 1st for those candidate interviews, first round screenings with the board. And then the second round, whatever process is going to be followed, would happen somewhere around the time frame December 4th through 6th, with the hope that the board was able to make a decision at the December board meeting. And through that process, as we get closer to November, December, obviously reference checks, negotiating contract, and formal communication would be going out. So now I will open up to, I guess, the board for any questions that you have for me. I believe Bob and I had another priority to go to, but I am here at your pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Schimpf, and we know Dr. Sharma Lewis had to step out, but we are grateful to her as well, and just appreciate all your efforts to connect with our extended D25 community and collect a rich set of data to guide our search. And before I open it up to my colleagues, I just want to note that the report we heard tonight from School Exec Connect will be available to the public to view on both our board agenda site and on the Superintendent Search page on our D25 website. And so with that, any questions or comments from the board?
I'm going to chime in. Dr. Shim, thank you so much for agreeing to make this your most comprehensive search that you've done so far, and really being willing to open up those focus groups and doing so many. I heard from lots of members in the community, they really appreciated, they felt heard. And so we're really happy with the way this search is going. And it is all kudos to you as our consultants, Dr. Shim, Dr. Bhavna Sharma Lewis, and School Exec Connect. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. It's I tell you what, organizationally, the focus group setup, the communication, it went out without a hitch. It was so well organized. It made things so easy, and the participation of your focus groups was second to none. So it really gave us a true lens of your community and what your needs are. So applauds to your district office and certainly your leadership as board president, and to all the board members for their time that they gave in communication with the search from facilitators as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Schimpf, and we'll see you again in November. And now we're going to move to our community input portion of the agenda. And if you wish to address any item on tonight's agenda for the special meeting, please complete one of the forms provided on the table in the lobby and hand it to Lana O'Brien, our recording secretary for the Board of Education. Lana, do we have any? Okay. So with no community input for this meeting, the board will now need to move into closed session. So can I have a motion to adjourn into closed session?
Mr. Vice President?
Yes, Kevin.
Now this is where I read the entire motion language, no? Okay.
Just a motion.
I move that the board moves into closed session.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rich. And Lana, could you please call the roll?
Read a little bit of the exception. Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
If you could
It's for
amend that motion, Kevin, thank you.
Certainly. Mr. Vice President, I move that the board move into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors, or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing a testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor, or a volunteer of the district, or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
And a second. Thank you again, Rich. And Lana, if you could, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we'll be back at 7 o'clock for our open session.